Welcome back to another speaking tip. Now, last week, in the last speaking tip, I went over the fact that in a story, or excuse me, in a speech, you need to tell one story, and that story needs to deliver one point, one message. That makes it easier for the audience to follow the messages and relate the message directly to one story versus having two or three stories that make the same point. Today, I want to talk to you about the type of stories to tell. And this is fairly simple. And I've covered some of these points in some other speaking tips, but I'm going to hit it again, a little different angle today. When you have a really dramatic story, and as speakers, a lot of times we feel, and I went through this quite a bit, I felt I haven't had anything really bad happen to me. I don't have any dramatic stories to tell. You know, I wanted to be, and I talked about, you know, I was never wrongly incarcerated for murder for 10 years and then got out and saw freedom again. And those stories, those big dramatic stories, I was, it's like the pilot died on the airplane and I had to land it. Or I was in a bank and the bank robbers came in and they strapped a suicide vest on me with all this dynamite and this switch, and the SWAT team came in and they shot the two bank robbers, but the bomb was ticking and they couldn't get it off. And the thing is, those stories, most people can't relate to them. It never happened to them. So the best story you can tell is a simple story that most people could experience. Some conflict you had in your life that wasn't some huge dramatic conflict. As I said, most people haven't had huge dramatic conflicts in their lives, so they don't relate to that story very well. But if you talk about the fact that you had a neighbor that you couldn't get along with and were always arguing with, and you came up to a resolution and you became best friends, and then you were over at each other's house all the time once you handled this thing. Everybody's had a bad neighbor. If you had a boss you couldn't handle, it was, if you had a personal struggle of feeling insignificant or incapable, everybody has those feelings of doubts and those reservations. Those are things everybody can relate to. So when you're picking your story, you don't have to have a big dramatic story. And I've had some of these come through recently where they're these huge, they're almost unbelievable stories. And I'm sitting there going, holy smokes. It's like, you survived the plane crash of a 737 MAX in Indonesia or something. You're the sole survivor in that plane crash. Now, that wasn't one of the stories, but it's like, that's a book. I want to hear more about what happened in that story. I can't believe that you survived it. Now that's a book, that's a speaking career. In a 5 to 7 minute speech, it's hard to get that story across with the magnitude and the impact that you need to, because it's such a huge story. Okay, so again, the tip today is the best stories are the simple little stories of life that you struggled with, that you found a resolution to. They don't have to be, you got run over by a steamroller and broke every bone in your body and took 4 years to learn to walk again. Because again, I said, most people haven't experienced that. It's a dramatic story. If it's true, it's incredible that, you've come back from that, but that's not going to fit in a 7 minute speech. That is a special keynote that you can position yourself with, and you're known for what you overcame from that standpoint. But like I said, in most speeches that we're doing, that the people I talk to, most of the speeches I do, the stories that have the impact are the simple little speeches. I tell the story about the first time I fired a man, and everybody can relate to that. And I'll ask the audience, how many people here have ever had to fire somebody? And the hands go up. I said, okay. Was that an act you enjoyed? Did you feel great, or was that an awkward situation? And they go, it's an awkward situation. Yeah, they go, me too. Let me tell you about the first time I fired a guy and what happened and the life lesson I learned from that. It was a simple story. That's what the audience relates to. Okay, that's the tip for the day. Keep your story simple, something everybody can relate to. And even if you survived a fall off the Empire State Building with no parachute, save that for your book and your speaking career. After you've been interviewed on the Today Show and Good Morning America, and Dateline, and you've been on Fox News 17 times, and CNN's interviewed you because of what happened. Now you have a great position to talk from, but still you're going to have to bring messages behind what you learned from that experience. Anyway, simple stories work best.